I am honored and privileged to be sitting here with, some would argue, great Glenn Schwartzberg. Glenn, want to take a moment to introduce yourself to all of our fans out in social media land?
Not really, but I will.
Excellent.
That's me. Glenn Schwartzberg. I've been doing S-Space since 1992 and attending the Kscope conference since 2008.
So Glenn, you have been probably the greatest contributor to the entire S-Space Hyperion EPM community for the last, what's it been, 30-something years at this
Something
point?
like that, yeah.
So take us back to the beginning. How'd you get started in all this?
I was doing relational databases. I was doing Teradata, a massive parallel processing database. And the client that I was at brought in this product called S-Space, and from the very beginning it clicked that they could get their data so quick and so easy and bypass of all of IT. And it was like, this is a great thing, I'm gonna pursue it.
So what was the first conference you went to?
The first conference I went to was a Hyperion Solutions conference in Santa Clarita in, gosh, I don't remember the year.
96?
95 maybe?
Oh.
Right after Dimensions.
So when did you start speaking? I mean, obviously now you've delivered at least 7 presentations in your life.
At least 7, yes.
I think it's closer to hundreds, but when did you first go, I'm gonna go from learning to passing it on?
So believe it or not, the first conference that I actually spoke at was at Kscope 2008.
Really? I would
Tim-
have assumed it was earlier.
No, Tim Toe called me and said, Glenn, do you want to become an Oracle Ace? I'm going, I have no idea what that is, but sure. And we've got this conference coming up in 2 months we'd like you to speak at. And the only reason Tim knew me is because I was on the Hyperion Developer Network and I was the top contributor to answers.
I didn't realize, because I've known you for many, many years prior to that, and you've been blogging, contributing on the Oracle networks, Network 54 before that. Mm-hmm. You've also written a book for the community.
I did.
You've definitely taken what you've learned, you've helped share it with everybody else. I didn't realize how closely you were tied into Kscope. So how has Kscope changed your career?
It's expanded it. It's interesting. You would think that speaking wouldn't be that much, but everybody in the world knows me now. I get people walking up thanking me for presentations that I've done. It's opened up new clients that I would never have met. And it made me meet you.
So not all perfect. There are definitely some things we need to work through. How has it helped you stay relevant? I mean, to be like this much of a thought leader still 30 years in, tell me about the value of conferences, the value of just educating, meeting, connecting with people.
So just like you, I really believe in educating the masses. And that's actually what drew me to Interrel when you were there. When I first started in S-Space, there wasn't a lot of information around, but there were people who were helping me to learn. And it made me confident, it made me successful. So once I started doing it, once I knew a little bit, I decided that I needed to give back to the community. And so blogging, going to conferences, answering technical network questions, OTN questions, whatever it was, allowed me to give back. I've stayed relevant by going to conferences, by doing research, and in a way, actually even giving presentations. If you look at my history, I haven't given the same presentation twice at a conference. So I'm always looking for new material, new things to help educate other people. I go to the sessions of other people who are giving them, and I get great insights about things that I would never have thought of, different ways of doing things.
So if you were giving advice to new people to the community or people that want to stay evolving as their job needs change, what would you tell them related to user groups like ODTUG, related to conferences like Kscope?
I would say get involved, not just attending, but even presenting, because the information you have is something that somebody else doesn't have. And it actually re-energizes you when you go to a conference, when you give at a conference, and it makes you want to do more. I would also recommend getting involved in your local user group. They do the same thing on a smaller scale. Have meetings, discuss issues, discuss relevant topics, aside from the weather and the local baseball. Yeah.
In terms of what you've given to the community, amongst all the thousands of questions that you've answered and blogs that you've done, tell me what got you started blogging? You did it before a whole lot of other people in the industry did.
So believe it or not, the Oracle ACE program got me blogging. When I looked at what the requirements for the ACE program were, it was to disseminate information. And so I decided to start a blog back then because that was one of the ways that you could contribute in addition to answering questions and speaking. So I thought, why not give out the information? My funniest story about my blog is my first blog post was a post that was roasting this guy by the name of Edward Roske.
Sounds like a tool.
Because he had written a book, and in that book he said something about report scripts being dead. And so I wrote a 3-part blog that showed all of the different ways that report scripts were still relevant. And then when I interviewed to become an employee of NRL, the person I was interviewing with, a wonderful person, Tracy McMullen, I said, I guess this means that I can't write blogs that roast Edward anymore. She said, no, we'll bonus you every time you do.
So,
still waiting for the bonus.
Yes. We didn't say monetary bonuses. It's more like an attaboy. So speaking of opportunities to say great things about this Edward Roske character, I remember that you wrote a book, Look Smarter Than You Are with Space Studio, and I have to admit I've never read it because it was long and had lots of words, but I'm told I was Edward, the heroic star of the entire book. Is this correct?
The comic foil, yes. Yes, and it all started with me, I was working in Austin, and I got a call from this Edward guy that said, we're giving this talk tomorrow on Space Studio, and the guy who was supposed to do it had to back out. So can you do it? So I drove from Austin to Dallas and gave the presentation, and Tracy was sitting in the back of the room and said, you need to write a book on that. And I said, no, I don't write. And so I had about a 3-hour drive, I think it is, back to Austin. And 11 o'clock at night, the mind wanders, and I thought of the first couple of paragraphs of the book. So at about 3 a.m., I got back to my hotel, typed it out, sent it to you and Tracy, and said, be careful what you wish for. And I think your response the next morning was, I literally laughed out loud and had to read it to my kids.
Yes.
And Tracy wrote back and said, you're definitely writing the book.
Now, it was wonderful. It's the only book ever written on Space Studio, and I really did read it. And for what it's worth, I was insulted horribly for the entire length of the book. And
loved it.
I loved it. I left. I promoted you.
You
at
did.
The end of it. So Glenn, I think when he turned it in, said, this is my resignation. And I think I said, no, this is proof that you do what's right and you say what's right to the entire industry. One last thing before we close out. You were talking about the Oracle ACE program. It's been a huge part of your life, a huge part of my life. Today is our last day.
Yes, I am becoming an alumni. If you don't know, I decided to retire. I retired from Argonaut in January, and I've slowly been ramping down. This is my last Kscope conference.
We will miss you.
But I also decided to step down from the program because I'm not doing enough right now to meet the requirements of really being that evangelist and advocate.
Well, you've given a great deal back to the program. Really quickly, how has the ACE program impacted your career?
Again, it's been very good for my career. I've gone to 7 countries speaking, evangelizing Oracle products. It's given me opportunities I wouldn't have had before.
Well, on behalf of the entire community, we will miss you greatly. What you have put in over the last 30 years has made the entire S-Space, analytics, EPM, Hyperion community so much better. I have to say one nice thing about you before you leave. If there was a Lifetime Achievement Award for the entire community, you would definitely deserve it. I'm very sad that this is your last Kscope event, very sad that you'll be leaving Argonaut, but tell us, what does retirement hold?
It's interesting. Believe it or not, this summer I've been working at a Boy Scout camp. I have time to do things that I didn't have time to do before. I'm going to be doing more traveling. I'm still going to be doing a little consulting. I'm kind of easing into that retirement. But a lot more travel. I'm still young enough that I can enjoy it. Already have a trip planned, cruise from New Zealand to Australia in March, and just going to enjoy life.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being a friend of the community, and I will admit this publicly so we have it on the social media record. Thank you for being a friend to me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What is this handshake?
Hug.
Oh.